Thank you everyone for joining us tonight for ALASC's Fall 2024 Connect Over Coffee event. We have four amazing panelists with us today who are SJSU alumni, and they're here to share their advice and experiences with all of you. We were supposed to have a fifth panelist. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it, but everyone who's here will do a great job answering your questions and giving you advice. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to our panelists so they can each go around and introduce themselves. And then we will just have a sort of open Q&A. So those of you in the audience, if you have any questions for them, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves and ask them directly. Or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can always just type your question in the chat and I'll read it out for you. So whoever wants to start by introducing yourself first, please go ahead.
I'll go since my name is at the top of the list. My name is Aisha Abdul Rahman. I am a 2023 SJSU graduate. I did a lot of work with Dr. Chow with the virtual reality initiative that he's working on, as well as with Bethany Winslow with the VR Exploders program that she has at SJSU. I am an independent archivist and information professional, so I don't have your traditional 9 to 5. I am the CEO of Legacy Planning and Preservation, where I provide digitization, cataloging, collection management, and archival services for galleries, libraries, archives, and museums. So I'm kind of like project-based work or part-time. So I'm an independent contractor with everyone that I work with. So I'm an archivist for the Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum in Sacramento, where I'm working part-time. And then I now have an upcoming contract with the Lewis Latimer Museum and the Queens Public Library in Queens, New York. I'm also the founder of Legacy Design Studio, where I specialize with galleries, libraries, archives, and museums with implementing virtual and augmented reality. So I'm currently working with the California State Railroad Museum. The artists at the Sojourner Truth Museum have painted this, I think it's like 18 by 23 foot. It's enormous mural from floor to ceiling mural that they've painted for the museum. And my role is I'm coming in and implementing augmented reality into that mural. So that's pretty much what I do.
I'll go next. That's great. My name is Devorah Bader, and I'm in Southern California. I graduated from San José State in 2021. It took me 4 years to get my master's. I was working full-time as a school librarian at the time. I have 4 children also, and their school had asked me to cover as interim librarian when their librarian left in 2016. And so while I was working there, I decided to get my MLIS also. Then after working at it was an independent day school, TK through 12. So I worked with all ages in the school. And then in about a year and a half ago, I decided to leave that environment. And I now work for University of California in Irvine in the technical services section of the library, working with acquisitions for print monographs and accounting. So it's a very different type of role, whereas at the school, I was in charge of everything, collection development, processing, purchasing, weeding, everything. I'm now in a very niche position of just purchasing. I don't even decide what to purchase, just somebody else tells me what to buy and I do the purchasing of it. So, which is kind of fun. I get my retail therapy at work, so I'm happy with that. I have some birds, so if you hear them tweeting away while I'm talking, they're just trying to join the conversation also. And thanks for having me and welcome everyone.
And I'll go next. My name is Destiny. I'm located in Colorado. It's actually 7 p.m. here. So my background is pretty much in public libraries. I got my master's in library information science from San José State in 2022. I'm still pretty much, not too far removed from graduate school. Like I mentioned, I have experience in public libraries, but I also have slight experience in records management, and I'm currently an academic librarian. I am one of many reference librarians at the Arapahoe Community College. Um, I do that part-time. I help students with their homework assignments, a lot of citation help, a lot of research help. Yeah, that's my background.
Everyone, my name is Dana Lema, and I graduated from San Jose State from the iSchool in 2018. And after I graduated, I worked at San Jose Public Library as a branch librarian and then as the systems electronic resources librarian for about 3 years. And then about 2.5 years ago, I relocated to Tucson, Arizona, which is where I am now. And I am the Discovery Unit lead faculty librarian for University of Arizona Libraries. So what I do is supervise the team that does all of the catalog work for all of the print and electronic resources. And I also work with the group and help maintain all of the electronic resources that the library has for researchers, the ebooks, journals, media, streaming, everything that the university uses for research and for education purposes.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves and sharing a little bit about yourselves and your career journeys so far. So now I'll turn it over to our audience. Does anyone in the audience have any questions off the bat for our panelists tonight? You can, for those of us joining late, you can either unmute yourself and ask them directly, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can just type your question in the chat and I'll read it out. And then if no one has any questions to start, or if they're just, thinking of their questions, oh, okay, we just got one. So our first question is, what courses did you think were helpful in preparing you for the job you have today?
So for me, I didn't plan the job or the work that I'm doing now. It just kind of happened accidentally. I when I first went to library school, I had already gotten my certificate in library science from Sacramento City College. My background was in web design, graphic design, and business. And so when I was introduced to library science, I thought I wanted to be a librarian, and I loved cataloging because it reminded me of SEO, which is like search engine optimization, which basically like helps people to find things on the internet. So when I started school, I was very much thinking, well, I'm going to do cataloging. Um, I really liked cataloging. And then I already had my background in VR and already had my nonprofit going. But I didn't think it would be something that I could do professionally. It was kind of just something fun, a hobby, that I had been doing prior to that. So when I took my final semester at SJSU, I took the VR class thinking, oh, it's just going to help me get credits. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an easy way for me to get an A because I know everything already. I learned so much in that class. I learned about all different types of tech, not just virtual reality, but augmented reality, a lot of kind of tools that teachers can use to implement technology. I guess you could call them Web 3.0. And I really learned a lot. And then when I started working with Dr. Chow and Bethany and seeing that there was a need for it and that museums and galleries were trying to implement it, but they weren't so sure, I decided to update my business plan for my nonprofit and focus on galleries and libraries and archives and museums, whereas before it was just art and it was just me doing my own thing. And then as terms of the archival work that I did or that I'm doing now, I took a grant writing class. It was super, super helpful. I didn't, I just, so what, and the other thing is, I was kind of like in the same situation you guys are in. There was a talk like this with some other alumni, and they said, don't pigeonhole yourself into taking one specific type of course or regimen. Like, try to be the be all know all for all the different things. Try to be able to do all the things. So I kind of listened to that. So I made sure I took a cataloging, I took a grant writing, I took all of what I thought would give me a broader understanding of the process of libraries. And then I had also did an internship in two academic libraries. So my passion has always been in archives because I'm also a genealogist. Um, and so I kind of leaned into heritage and ended up doing that course program and taking all of those classes. But I wanted to make sure I could still have a broad view and be able to do almost anything. So I feel like in terms of courses, is you want to make sure you kind of know how to do all the things just in case, because oftentimes libraries, archives, and museums, there you will have to wear multiple hats depending on the size of the institution. I've worked at larger and smaller. So the smaller, you will do a lot of different things, whereas the larger, you'll just have one set thing you do. But then they may need you to move up and switch your role from time to time. So for me, I feel like grant writing, cataloging, and the VR classes, hindsight 2020, were very important courses now, but I didn't plan it like that at all.
And I think for me, collection development was a huge one. I did that a little bit in the public library realm. I wasn't a development librarian, but that was one of my duties. Also now as an academic librarian, I do more collection development. So that one was pretty huge. And then I am a reference librarian. So the I think it's called Info Reference Services. I took that course and it was really helpful today.
And for me, probably HTML, CSS, because I'm doing a lot of work in Easy Proxy, and sometimes the work within cataloging, you need to have some familiarity with XML. And so that's been really, that was quite helpful. And I'm like Aisha, I didn't plan to be in this area of librarianship. It just kind of opened up. They need somebody with some tech skills, and I had those, and I just kept learning things and going down the rabbit hole. The other thing that helped me too was there was a class on cataloging of digital materials. That was really helpful for me with what I'm involved in, particularly reference classes that taught good, reference interview skills, because I'm working with students and, helping them identify their research needs and being able to get out the real information. They have an idea of what they want, but they're not always good at narrowing that down or explaining it. So doing that interview with them to help them find out what it is they truly need. And probably also I did I was a student worker for the archives and special collections for San José State. And that was really helpful because you learned how to manage a collection, you learned how to catalog it, you learned how to preserve it, you learned how to organize it. And so that was really helpful for me as well.
I also just, I think the one course that really helps me now is the cataloging course, because I do have to do a lot of searches through OCLC to find very specific and sometimes rare books. I do acquisitions for everything print for UCI. So it could be special collections, it could be biological sciences, it could be for the medical school. So it's just very, there's a wide range of things that I'm looking at. I had thought I was going to be a children's librarian when I started, since I was working at a school, elementary and high school. And so I did focus a lot of my classes on that. And I I probably should have diversified a little bit. I don't think it really would have affected my current position at all, but um yeah, so I'm maybe I it's interesting because when I was in the iSchool, maker spaces and design thinking were a very big deal. And the principal I was working under told me I had to take design thinking classes and I had to learn more about maker spaces. And I'm not sure that was the best advice. Where I am at UCI now, I don't, my supervisor didn't even know what a makerspace was when I was interviewing. So it's a very different environment. There is a makerspace on campus, but it's all through the engineering school. It's not really through the libraries. And they're also, yeah, so I think things are much more broad at once you get into different types of libraries. So I think it's good to have like a good general um, education as well about how they all work.
Thank you all for sharing that. I definitely actually went the same route as well, trying to pick a broad range of classes instead of myself in one specific pathway. We have gotten a couple more questions. Two of them kind of go together, I think. So they're asking, open to anyone, what advice would you give someone who is making a career shift and does not have any current career experience in the MLIS landscape to take advantage of or to participate in during the graduate program? For example, like clubs, internships. And I do think the next question also kind of goes along with that because they're asking what non-coursework experiences you enjoyed during your time in school, like, internships, volunteering, research, conferences, or if you were involved in any student groups.
So career shift. So I feel like your internships is very important because it's hands-on. So you have to really know your learning style. I'm a hands-on and a visual learner. And I think without those, things would have been very theoretical for me. Um, and then also having done the certificate program before I did my MLIS program, I got to work in academic libraries to see if it was a fit for just so that I would actually enjoy the environment that I was working in. So I worked at USC Library shortly after I did my certificate program, and the library was nice and I loved the work, but I would get there when it was dark and I would leave when it was dark, and there were no windows. So I was in a building all day and I knew I didn't like that. Um, and then I did my internship at a small academic library and a larger academic library. So I felt like I got a really good idea of what it would be like at an academic library and decided that wasn't for me. But going in, I was like, I want to work at an academic library. Even now, I'm still like, oh, I want to work on a college campus, live in a college town. But I don't think it would be happy for my overall lifestyle and like mental health, what I like. I like freedom, I like flexibility, I like to travel, I like to do genealogy research. And so I try to keep that in mind when I decided to go the heritage route, is like it's hard to find a balance of you want to make good money versus do the work that you enjoy. So I tried to find a good blend of the two, but I think having those internships is very valuable because you get hands-on, not only just to learn the skills, but to see if that's the environment that you want to work in. I homeschooled my kids up until high school, so I knew I did not want to work in a school library. I'm like, I'm getting older and I'm like, okay, and I have six grandkids. So I was like, yeah, if I want to love my weekends with my grandkids, I don't want to be in a public school with kids all day and still have my mental health and not be stressed out. Because kids can be a lot and they really look up to you. So I feel like it's not just library work that you're doing with kids. It's a big responsibility. And then conferences are, I feel like, the a big part for me because I am an independent information professional and that was not my plan. And I'm also very introverted, so conferences gets me out of my comfort zone. It helps me network and to meet with other people and make connections. Because if I would not have attended conferences or even events like this where I'm speaking, um, people would have no idea of who I am and what I do. So part of the reason why I end up doing the work that I'm doing is because I still haven't found a job. So I graduated in December 2023. I applied for every job under the sun, I feel like. But because of my network, I'm able to get contracts and projects pretty easily. And I think that's from doing things like this or attending conferences, getting more comfortable with public speaking. Um, the other thing that you might want to consider is what I've done is I've kind of reverse engineered what I want to do is I know when I retire, I might want to have like some type of teaching, like teaching library science online, as our professors do, all of our classes are online. And I've looked at their CVs and I've looked at what they've done. So a lot of them write, a lot of them do public speaking, they do conferences. And so I'm kind of trying to do that as I'm trying to reverse engineer where I see myself in, 10, 15 years from now, if I want to be with where they are at now. So I look at other people's resumes and CVs, their LinkedIn's, and then I also looked at job opportunities and what people are looking for to decide what area to move in and what classes to take in, and kind of also think for the future is what are people going to be doing in terms of information science in the future. And it's leaning a lot to tech, VR, and stuff like that.
I just wanted to say about conferences. I think they're also really important for the career shift and for the other question about staying on top of industry trends. There's a lot of now because of COVID, there's a lot of online conferences, and a lot of them tend to be free or like one day or half a day. And there's from like every part of the industry. I went to an AI one today. That's continuing tomorrow. I've been to, Kidlit ones. I've been to book fair, everything online. And I think that's really useful because you can still connect with people and still meet other people, but without having to spend the transportation budget that you might not have as a student. And I definitely recommend like joining ALA, even if you can't become a member, to join their listserv and follow some of the listservs of the areas that you might be interested in, just to see what their conversations are, to learn about conferences, to learn about get-togethers. A lot of them have like these, multiple times a year events where they're sharing information. And I think that's really helpful to follow.
And I don't know for sure, but when I was a student at San José State University, they did give us the membership for free for ALA for 2 years, I believe. So conferences is really a big one.
Yeah, conferences are a big way I stay on top of, especially in electronic resource trends and things that are going on. And your local state conferences are usually very good and less expensive than the national conferences. So if you can get tuned into your, Colorado State, Arizona State, California State Library Association conferences, those are very good. The other thing I did when I was working on my MLIS was I actually volunteered as a page at the public library system. And that was really helpful for me because I learned, the backside of how the library worked and, how to receive books and shelve and weed and shift books around and help patrons and so on and so forth. But it also helped me get to know the librarians and some of the staff. So when it came time to apply for a job that opened up, they knew me. I was a known entity. I'd been there volunteering for, a few days a week or a couple days a week for a year. So if you have an opportunity to volunteer, whether it's as a page in your local library system or, helping out with programming or, tutoring somebody who maybe needs to improve their literacy skills, that was really helpful for me, kind of just getting my foot in the door and getting that first job.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say I also volunteered before I even started my master's in library information science program. I actually started as a Amazon book uploader for the Denver Public Library Friends Foundation. All I would do is upload books, price them. It wasn't quite being a page. I started as a page after I started volunteering. That was a good way to get my foot in the door for the Denver Public Library. So volunteering is a really big one. And I think it's a really great way to see not only like the backside of libraries, but to see like what are you interested in. I know that some academic libraries, they may not have like volunteer opportunities, but maybe you can come shadow for a day and see like what type of library you'll be interested in.
You know, Destiny, speaking of shadowing, one thing that I also did do is I forget what they're called, like informational interviews,
Yeah.
is I would look at people that I wanted to learn more about the work that they're doing, and I would reach out to them on LinkedIn and schedule Zoom calls with them and just tell them, hey, I'm a student and I'm interested to learn more in the work you're doing. So it's kind of like shadowing. And I would just ask them my questions. I would ask them, you know, do you have time? And I would message them and ask them my questions.
Yeah.
Great advice from all of you. I definitely did informational interviews before I started my MLIS, the previous career that I thought I wanted to do. And that was actually what helped me decide I didn't want to go into that career. So, um, great advice. I actually just came back from the California Library Association conference on Monday as well. We do have, let's see, someone asked if you have suggestions regarding where to find conferences we can attend, and our membership coordinator, Eddie, had put a link in the chat. He also asked how you stay current with industry trends and development after graduation. I do think that some of you touched a little bit on that. Is there anything else you wanted to say regarding keeping up with current trends?
I would just second what Devorah said. I'm on a lot of listservs. I feel like that's how I stay up to date. It's like being in a library WhatsApp group, and I'm also in some Discord groups with library students from Sac City or library students from SJSU. But yeah, I think those listservs are very, very, very helpful.
I just also want to add that whatever you're interested in doing, there's probably a group for it. So I would just Google whatever topic, whatever like random thing. Like if you think it's like D&D in libraries, there's probably a group for it. If you want to look at um cataloging German books in math libraries, there's probably a group for it. So just Google and search for what you're interested in, and that's a good place to start, even if it's just a hobby or something you don't necessarily want to do as your ultimate goal, but it at least can give you get you interested to the vocabulary and might lead other places for you.
Okay, perfect. We also have a question specifically for Dana in the chat. She asked, how did you get your start in electronic resources? I'm interested in learning more about that type of librarianship and how to prepare either through taking courses or interning.
I kind of fell into the electronic resource librarian. That wasn't my intent when I started my career as a librarian. I was working at the branch library, and I've always had a knack for learning technology and helping others understand it. So we had a lot of seniors in the branch that I was working with, and a lot of them were trying to learn how to use Overdrive and all the different electronic resources that the library had. So I spent a lot of time sitting down with them and teaching them, and then I wound up doing some instructionals that they could access, you know, on the internet if they in case I wasn't there to help them. And then COVID hit, and we immediately had to pivot from everything print to everything electronic. And we had one electronic librarian for a system. San Jose Public Library serves a million, you know, the city's a million people, very large system. We had one electronic librarian, and now we have thousands and thousands of people desperately wanting to use electronic resources and one person to handle the teaching and the instruction and troubleshoot everything. So she put out a call for people to assist, to help, and a little group of us formed to help the electronic resources librarian at the time support everybody who was, you know, all of a sudden needing to use Overdrive, or how do I load it to my Kindle, and all these questions. Well, just after COVID ended, she decided to relocate, and I applied for a position. That's how I wound up as the electronic resources librarian, and then eventually overseeing the electronic resources and cataloging and so forth at the university. As far as classes go, actually, one of the things I'm doing some research on as part of my faculty work is not a lot of iSchools have kind of a course track for somebody who's interested in doing kind of the tech services, the electronic resources, kind of the backside of librarianship. And so, like I'd mentioned earlier, the HTML, CSS was a really helpful class for me. Understanding basic cataloging and the coding and the different schema for that was really helpful for me in terms of electronic resources. Becoming a super user, just making sure that I was using Overdrive, I was using, the tech and the electronic resources and really poking around and learning how to use them and their little glitches and their little nuances so I could teach people how to use those. Uh, the track that I took at San Jose State, I don't know if it's still a track, was instruction, how to instruct people on learning and discerning their information. And that was really helpful because along with electronic resource librarianship often comes either in person or virtual or written instruction for people so they understand how they can use the electronic resources. So the instruction classes were really helpful to me. And then my internship my internship was actually in instruction, and I developed some online courses and used some online software for that. And then my student work, as I mentioned, was for special collections, where I again learned more about, digitization and cataloging of digitization and all that aspect of it. So, as far as classes go, anything you can get your hands on that teaches you about electronic resources or coding or instruction, I think are really helpful if the program doesn't offer something specifically in that track. And then as far as internships go, if you can find things that are supporting teaching people to use electronic resources, I think that would be very helpful because then you learn how to explain it to somebody else. And a lot of time troubleshooting and tickets and helping people use those things is a big part of the job.
One thing I was thinking about when you were speaking is when I was picking my courses, I looked at what courses does iSchool offer that I can not really get anywhere else? What library specific courses can I not get anywhere else? Because some of the courses that they did have, like Java or a lot of those tech courses, I said, well, I can get those for free on Coursera or Teach Myself or on YouTube. So I looked at, especially those tech classes, what classes can I not get anywhere else where I can get the biggest bang for my buck while I'm in school versus classes that I can take anytime or learn later on. And it really also goes back to, what your learning style is. So I'm a independent learner. I'm quick to learn and teach myself things versus something that I need help with. Um, but that's one of the things that I started looking at when taking my classes is this something I can learn later on my own versus something that I need more specific help with from a professor right now.
Great advice. I will say for anyone who's interested in learning how to teach like information literacy, like Dana mentioned, I am taking Info 256 right now, which is information literacy and learning. And you do get to learn how to teach. It's mostly geared towards academic librarianship, but I work in public librarianship, and I still think it's useful for learning how to teach people about information literacy. So if you're interested in that route specifically, that's a course you might. We have another question here. Someone has asked, a few of you have touched on this, but if any, what experiences or support do you believe could have enriched your time as a student at SJSU? For example, having a mentor or connecting directly with one or more library professionals?
I was a member of Special Collections, San Jose Special Collections student group, which was fun. It was really fun. I was unusual because I lived in San Jose, so I actually was about 10 minutes from the university, but all the classes were online. But the group got together, those of us who were in the Bay Area, and we would go to different libraries. For example, we went to Berkeley and we went a couple of different places on little field trips, had different kinds of little social events to get us together in person. And that was a lot of fun. It was a nice bonding. And when you're online all the time, there's that separation, and that helped bring us closer together. And then, the nice thing I liked about the program was you got to form a fairly close bond with the professors. For example, Professor Michael Stevens was one of the first professors I had. He's amazing. If you've never had him, he's just fantastic. But he was so accessible and so enthusiastic and, just so friendly and just a wonderful, far and away amazing experience beyond anything I'd had in my bachelor's program. So, connections with the professors too, I think were really, really important because you could have a dialogue and they were available to you and they really were interested in mentoring and supporting you.
I worked with a couple of professors also while I was in school there, and that was very beneficial to work on just private projects that popped up, or a lot of times they sent emails out, is anyone available to help out with this? And that was fun. Um, because I was working full time and I'm in Southern California, I do wish that I had been able to connect more in person with other students or other library professionals. Even they had one tour of the Blizzard Library that was, I would have loved to have gone on, but it was, I think only 15 people were accepted for it. And I kind of wish there had been more opportunities like that in my area to just go see different libraries, because I was working in my small little school library and using the listservs to kind of learn about what else was out there, but it would have been nice to have physically seen them. So if you have opportunities to do that, definitely take advantage of that.
So for me, I did not have in-person enrichment, and I think that that would have been great. I did see some people discussing like, oh, if you live in this area, let's meet up and do coffee, but it was never in my area. So I think that that would have been very valuable. Um, but like Dana and Devorah was saying, my professors, so working on those projects, on those extracurricular things, I think is very valuable. I still have relationships with them today. And then the other people that were in those groups doing the same thing, we still keep in contact with each other today. So it's like you kind of create a family with your graduate class of people that you work with on those specific projects. I did join the SLA, the students, and because it was online, I think there was a disconnect for me. It was fun at the time when I was learning and getting the experience with programming because I was the program coordinator. But I think because it was online, I didn't get as close to the people in the group and I didn't keep in contact with them. And I think it could also be because it was a shorter span of time versus an entire semester of working on different things together. But yeah, I think that in person for some people is very important.
Yeah, and for me personally, I just wish I spent more time connecting with people and not really like rushing through the program because when I went to San Jose State, I was already working as a shelver for the Denver Public Library. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get a public librarian job. And I did end up getting a public librarian job, but I just spent a lot of time kind of rushing through the program to get the piece of paper to become a librarian, where I just wish I didn't rush so much because it all worked out in the end. And I wish I connected with people more during my time there.
The other thing I did is I connected with people on Instagram and TikTok. So when I was in MLIS school, I would just basically stalk all the librarians and all the archivists and follow them, be like, hey, I'm in school. I love what you're doing. I did a couple of podcast interviews with other librarians. So social media can be used to your benefit, especially because I think we have librarians of TikTok like hashtag. And so I was able to make a lot of connections online with people that were, far further away, but it was better than nothing.
Speaking of social media, there is a Facebook group to help you get through the portfolio, and I highly recommend joining that Facebook group if you haven't, even a semester or two early to kind of see what hiccups people are finding. While it was stressful, I really enjoyed the portfolio because it showed me how much I knew. So I kind of liked being able to see that accumulation of knowledge that I had gained but since it was over 4 years, I didn't quite remember everything I had done. That group was really helpful.
Oh, I totally forgot all about the portfolio stress. Having that group of people, our professor that I took the portfolio class with, she stuck everybody in different groups. And it was so nice to have each other. We were like wanted to vent or cry, kick and scream. We had each other. And I do suggest you think about your portfolio sooner than later because it will sneak up on you and you won't realize how applicable everything is that you're learning. Even now, like I literally have all of my coursework archived and I still go back to it and look at it and reference it today. So start like screenshotting, downloading, archiving everything that you're learning because you're going to need it for your portfolio.
And start looking at all of your competencies. I know when I did mine, there was one of my people in my cohort who had really, really focused on their area of study and kind of kept blinders on to anything else that was in the competencies. And so when the portfolio time came, they had really scant evidence for anything that wasn't in their focus area. So really, look at all those competencies and make sure make sure you're getting some evidence or thinking some evidence for all of them.
Yeah, and your competencies don't have to be just what you learned in high school. It can be personal experience, volunteer, internship, things a long time ago. You're just basically showing that you understand it and that you have had experience with it, but it doesn't have to be specific to your coursework or what you learned at high school.
Applying for jobs is kind of some jobs will let you apply if your degree is forthcoming. You just when you before you have the job, they'll let you show your degree. Some jobs won't let you apply until you actually have the degree, so you'll have to pay attention to that. But my suggestion is start applying as soon as you can. The minute that you think your degree is going to be close, go ahead and start those applications because especially if it's academic libraries, it can take 6 months. It's months and months to get in.
I would say start applying right now. Just it's very competitive. Just start applying right now.
Yep, I graduated in December 2023 and I have not landed a job. So even my part-time work that I'm doing with the Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum was because I started as an intern there my final semester. And now I'm their archivist, but it's still very project-based part-time. So it's been over a year and I still have not landed a 9 to 5 job. So start looking start looking now and use your handshake. So I still go back to handshake. I feel like it's kind of like a way to kind of curve and go like a side door to some of the jobs. Use handshake. Don't forget that it's available to us.
And I still use it today. I know that San Jose State, they have a specific like resource and plenty of links for oh actually, you know what? Let me see if I oh yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, I think finding a job is difficult. And a previous discussion like this, the archivist, she told me that she had worked in libraries and she didn't have any archives experience. It took her 2 years to find a job. Um, so I don't know if that's the norm, but I hear it's pretty competitive to get library and archive jobs. So
Yeah.
they say, make sure you stay connected with your peers. If they hear anything, they can forward you jobs. I've had people from different academic libraries like, hey, I think you would be a great person for this job. I work here, apply for it. I apply for it, crickets. So
Yeah.
it
Not to
takes a
discourage
while.
anyone, but like seriously, we're serious. Like start looking now. It is very competitive.
I would build up your LinkedIn also and start signing up for job notifications from there just to see again, to look at vocabulary and see what they're looking for in the job posting. So you can kind of make sure that you're building a resume that matches what people are looking for to a certain extent.
And I post on my LinkedIn like people post on Instagram. I'm like, oh, I'm working on this great project, or I
Mm-hmm.
read this article,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like it's engagement, it's networking, just in a different platform, in a different way. Um, and I like and comment on other people's stuff. Like Dr. Chow just posted, oh, the VR team is nominated for this thing. I'll go and like and comment and participate as if it's, the real world. So it's very, very important not to just create your profile and leave it there.
Yeah.
Academic librarian positions take a long time, not just to find one and not just because they're competitive, but because the process takes forever. So I think the job that I currently have, I honestly forgot I had applied for it when they offered me an interview. And yeah, so I was like, oh, okay, because I was applying for jobs for 2 years, and just anything that popped up that I had remotely some skill set that I thought would work. My goal was to get into the academic library system, and then I figured I could, jump to a different position within that system if I needed to. But I happen to really love my supervisor and my team, so I'm not planning on jumping anytime soon. But yeah, just start looking and applying, and you might not hear anything, and you might hear something after, months after you gave up on it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mine was the same way. I think
yeah.
I applied in May, and the first time I heard back, I had done the same thing. I totally forgot I had applied for it. And I think in September, I got a call and they said, "Oh, do you want to do?" And then, of course, there's, the
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 interview.
Zoom interview, and then the
Yeah.
second Zoom interview, and then you come make a presentation and the in-person interview, and then they have to get the provost's approval because it's a faculty position. Anyway, there's just some, and I finally started in February. So, yeah, it's a very long, long, long process for academic libraries. Yes.
And I would say look at jobs anywhere that has information. Like it may not be called a librarian, or it may not be called an archivist or information professional. Anywhere that has information is going to need your skills. So look up different types of positions, use keywords. Um, don't just look for libraries, don't just look for archives. Um, Look at, tech or whatever specific things you're looking for. I posted in the chat archives gig. I get emails from them all the time about different library and archive jobs. Some of them are permanent, some of them are temporary, some of them are for government jobs. Um, I really like it because I feel like, you just want to get your foot in the door. Even if it's temporary or part-time or a project, you don't know where that's going to lead you. So, like I said, is for me, I started out as an intern, and now I, have my own business with my own contracts. Not something that I ever thought or imagined or planned. And I absolutely love it.
Also in Southern California, a lot of the studios have jobs for librarians. So I know that like Warner Brothers had a job opening, NASA has had job openings at JPL. The zoos have libraries and librarians. The Gemological Society had a these were all positions that looked really interesting to me, but I'm very limited into how far I can drive for my job. But there's a ton of like non-standard librarian positions that are out there to keep an eye out on, and they all look very fun and interesting in their own way, to me at least.
And
Yeah.
archive gigs has remote jobs. So if you click like because it's just a WordPress blog, if you click the category, you'll find a lot of remote jobs as well. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. They're just very competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. And, don't don't limit yourself. As I mentioned, my main experience is with public and academic libraries, but public librarianship kind of did burn me out. So I left libraries for a while and did some records management. I don't think I will be a librarian forever, but it's definitely a fun career for now.
I would look at maybe non-traditional things also. So like if you're in a Facebook group, or if you're in, so I'm like in a women's travel community called Wonderful, and it's hosted by Mighty Networks. They need information management. They need someone who's going to create guides. They need somebody who's going to help manage the data, someone who's going to engage in the content. So even a, it's called like a community manager. Community management is also information professional work. So look outside the box, look at different positions that you wouldn't necessarily consider um, librarian work, especially if it's something that you're already doing and you already have a lot of knowledge about and it's fun and you enjoy it. You're going to find that there's information work tied to it.
Information really can be located anywhere. So there is more than just librarianship.
Perfect. Thank you all for sharing your advice. We are reaching about our last final 5 minutes. So if you wanted to go around and share any, closing thoughts you have, maybe any final words of advice you want to share with the student. Go ahead.
I just realized we might have scared people. Don't be scared. And like going for the traditional librarian, if that's what you want to do, that's fine too. I think the most important thing is to be flexible and to realize that you might have to, I think almost in any position, any job nowadays, you have to be flexible and be willing to kind of go with the flow to a certain extent. So, but definitely don't be scared off. Just you have to put some effort into it.
What I would like to see is for more people like us to share their experiences. So there's like maybe one or two archivists that I follow on YouTube, and they don't really talk about behind the scenes things, but we have our student blog. Someone posted here in the chat, the blog. Share your experience with other people. I think that that's really, really great. If you're working on a project on your own, catalog your own stuff, download. I've created a custom cataloging system using Airtable. That has been one of the ways where I've been able to get contract work is I'm not waiting for somebody to give me a job. I'm creating my own work and creating my own projects and then using that experience to get a lot of the work that I'm getting now and share your experience online. Share what you're doing on social media, on TikTok, and you'll be surprised with opportunities that might come available.
And I just wanted to say, like, regardless of what path you guys may end up taking, if you end up going into one specialized field, such as special or public or school, or maybe not librarianship at all, just don't feel stuck. There's just so many other avenues.
Yeah.
And I would say definitely look at the tech services librarianship side of things. From what I've seen and what I've experienced, there are a lot of jobs out there in that area because not many librarians focus on that, and there aren't as many applicants. So if that's something you're interested in, you have that skill set, definitely look at that as even if the school doesn't offer a track or a certificate, create your own little, specialty there and look at that. Look at different, ways that you can be a librarian, not in the traditional front desk reference way, but maybe there's a way there you can be a librarian in the tech services in the what kind of the backside of the library and have fun. And if anybody needs to reach me, Kat, I'm assuming it's okay. I can give you my work email and you can reach out and ask me questions. I'm happy to answer.
Yes, of course. That was going to be my final comment. So thank you to all our panelists for being here tonight and like sharing your experiences and advice with all of our students. Yes, I will be sending a follow-up email to all of our participants and the registrants who registered for the event if they weren't able to make it tonight with our panelists' contact information. So if you have any like follow-up questions you think of or more specific individual questions you want to ask to one of them, their contact info will be in the email I sent out. It was already in the speaker bios too that I had sent out with the event beforehand, so you can find it there, but I'll send it out again. So feel free to reach out to any of them individually if you want to ask them more questions. And thank you again for coming out tonight. This was ALASC's Fall 2024 Connect Over Coffee event. We will be having 2 more events this semester. So in a week, we'll be having a trivia night. It's like Halloween themed, spooky themed. So if you're interested in trivia and you think you know something, please come to that event and you have the chance to win gift cards. And then next month, we will be doing an Around the World library tour where we will be looking at different libraries around the globe. And we'll have a guest speaker for that one too. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight.
Thanks for
Have a
having
good
me.
rest of the night.
Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
to our panelists. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good
Thank you.